Welcome, everyone. It's good to have you here. We have about a half a dozen guests so far, so let's just wait just a moment. We're so happy to have you join us today for our program with the Small Business Development Center. It's a great topic, don't you think? Yeah. We'll just wait another minute or two. Okay, I think we should get started. Hello, everyone. My name is Denise Lucy, and I'm professor and executive director of the Institute for Leadership Studies at Dominican University of California. And it's my pleasure to welcome and thank you for joining today's Business Edge Briefing program. Dominican's Institute for Leadership Studies, in partnership with the North Bay Leadership Council, have together produced, since 2010, 163. This is our 163rd program today. It's just a joy and pleasure to work with the North Bay Leadership Council all these years with the idea that we had together. We sought to welcome business owners and organizational leaders to share their business strategies and techniques to be competitive and resilient in both the domestic and global marketplaces. Our goals for these briefings are to ignite innovation, to inspire creativity, and to increase profits and productivity. Our speakers are engaging and recognized experts who inspire business leaders to thrive in good times and in bad. I want to thank you, Cynthia Murray, for co-founding and co-sponsoring this exciting program all these years. And Cynthia, we appreciate that you'll be moderating the Q&A portion of today's program. We'd like to thank our community partner, the San Rafael Chamber of Commerce. Our chamber is one of Marin's leading business advocates, providing resources, relationships, and results for its members. We would also like to thank our partner that is located on the Dominican campus in the Borowski School of Business, the United States Commercial Service. The U.S. Commercial Service has been on our campus for over 20 years, and it is the lead trade promotion agency of the United States government. Its trade professionals provide counseling and support to help U.S. companies increase sales to new global markets, and we're thrilled that the U.S. Commercial Service is in our business school with us. Joining us today is our other on-campus partner, the Marin Small Business Development Center since 2017, led by Miriam Hope Carell all these years. The center provides no-cost business advising to small businesses in areas such as e-commerce, social media setup, pivoting strategies, and more. In this past year, the center has helped over 1,300 businesses. To introduce our presenters, I'd like to welcome Miriam Hope Carell and my buddy whose office is right next door. She's our director of the SBDC in Marin. Welcome, Miriam.
Thank you, Denise. Welcome, everybody. It's good to have everyone here. So just a little note in terms of about SBDC. I will put some information in the chat. If you are not a client and you want to get connected to an expert advisor, then Melissa, our instructor tonight, is one of our team members. So if you have further questions or you need to work one-on-one at no cost, then you can connect with us, and we'll get you connected to the advisors to work with you. So, as Denise said, we can support you with marketing, funding, product development, hiring, strategic development strategies, whatever you might need for your business growth. And it's all no cost for you. So I'll put some stuff in the chat. And then if you have questions, as they come up, feel free to write your questions in the Q&A, and we will get to them at the end of the presentation today. And Cynthia will be moderating that part of it. And so we also have an evaluation form. If you could please fill that out, I'll put the link in the chat as well so that you can have access to that. And so let me introduce our presenter, Melissa Sanchez, who is one of our wonderful team members, an SBDC advisor. So she's a productivity coach and an HR strategist that's committed to supporting locally owned, community-based small businesses with creating action plans and specifically focusing on human capital. And she has more than 15 and a half years of consulting experience working with executives and mid-level managers, and is currently most passionate with about working with independent business owners that are pursuing their lifelong dreams. So, um, thank you, Melissa, so much for helping us all stay up to date and educated around different tips with HR. And so I'm going to pass it to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Miriam. And thank you again to all of our sponsors and those that are hosting today's session. So the topic for today is obviously, if you have a hybrid workforce, what are some proven ways and capabilities to increase the performance and productivity of your workforce? So I'll go ahead and start sharing my slides. And yes, everyone will be getting a copy of the presentation, as well as obviously the recording after today's session. So hybrid workforce. Obviously, when we think about the hybrid workforce today, we think about usually what happened prior to the pandemic. We really had 17% of the workforce were doing some form of hybrid working, wherein they would be in the office half of the time, or they would work from home maybe 1 or 2 days at a time, or you've also got a workforce where maybe 50% of your employees are in office, or at another 50% is located in other places of the country. So that's typically what a hybrid workforce looks like. So for today's session, what we're really going to go into is obviously knowing that we've now entered a phase of this hybrid workplace. There's all these different nuances out there that we need to start considering. So one of them would be various different generational differences that are now in the workforce, from the baby boomers to the Gen Zs. What's their work style? What's their learning style? What would be effective communication strategies to utilize in terms of motivating and getting the most productivity out of your hybrid workforce? We want to talk about still building culture, even though we may be remote or maybe only seeing each other in an office space once or twice a year. We still want to create a positive and engaging work culture. We also want to still be able to hold your team members accountable for those that are in that hybrid work setting. And then we also want to cover some unique perks and benefits to support a hybrid team. Because again, it's such a multifaceted workplace nowadays based upon how you're dealing with different types of employees, how you're dealing with different types of generations, how you're dealing with even different diverse cultures and situations and backgrounds of different people and of where they are and where they're coming from. So this is where we are today. And keeping in mind that obviously most businesses started working from home during the pandemic. And now that we're reaching a point of coming out of it, we are still itching and needing a little bit of both, right? So here's at the bottom, you'll see some reasons why employers are forcing folks to come back to the office full time. And then there's resistance from the employees saying, well, wait a minute, we were just as productive working from home than working from the office. And maybe even for some, even more productive, because now you don't have any of those extra distractions of, water cooler talks or going down for coffee or, walking and having lengthy lunches. So employers nowadays have seemed to come to this assumption that they want all of the workers back in the workplace 100% of the time. But employees, of course, enjoyed the autonomy. They enjoyed the work-life balance. They enjoyed the ability to not have to commute to and from work and actually use that time to actually be productive instead of sitting in your car and waiting and piling through traffic. So considering that in terms of the remote workforce and or the hybrid workforce. And then last but not least, there also was some online fatigue for those that were working 100% from home. We start to experience this feeling of loneliness, that I'm only seeing people through these screens, that, okay, I'm not really collaborating as well with some of my coworkers, or I'm not really connecting as well with my manager or my boss or my colleagues because of the fact that we are all online versus maybe taking that walk around the block or going to the water cooler for a cup of coffee or whatever it may be, because you can actually collaborate better in person when you're doing some of those other activities. So really considering the spirit of the hybrid workforce now is some combination of all of the above, right? You may have some team members that fully work from home, some team members that fully want to come in the office 5 days a week, and some that want a little bit of both. And that is what the spirit of the hybrid workforce is today. So now, based on that, how has that impacted all of the different generations that we have now working within our business confines, right? So obviously we've got the baby boomers. This is about 20% nowadays of our workforce, and shrinking by the minute, but of course we still have a lot of them delaying retirement, delaying their benefits, wanting to still be in work and doing something productive. So they typically are the 9-to-5ers. They want that clear distinction between home and work hours. So whether they're doing that in the office and using the commute time to have that distinction, or they're at home and they literally are closing their door, shutting things off in terms of their personal lives and really hunkering down and working. They love to share information through meetings, work documents, in-person conversations. They're not so much the folks that are wanting to text and email and just go through reading things to have those conversations. They tend to stay in their company for years. They've worked for years within one company, kind of worked their way through the hierarchy, maybe starting as an admin or starting as, in the mailroom and going up through the company ranks. They like spending time. For them, that shows value. To them, that shows loyalty to their upper management and to their managers, that who they work for, that I can actually stay and work long hours for my company. And there's a sense of definition around who they are with what they do, right? So I am CEO of this tech company, or I am, the vice president of this educational institution. So they've a lot of times identified their identity of who they are with what they do in the workforce. Then we come to the Gen X's. These are the folks that are, more resourceful. They've focused on trying to somehow maintain a work-life balance. Whether or not they are living a work-life balance is a different story, but they value and understand the ability to both be at work, but be at home too, to help with household duties, personal things, etc. They are the first generation that was introduced to the personal computers. So obviously now we've got our mainframe, like big desktop computers, but nowadays we have these little laptops now that we can utilize when we're working. But they were the ones introduced the big mainframe computers. They also were involved in some changes in technological shifts, social shifts. They tend to have liberal views, maybe some divorced parent backgrounds, because obviously marriage maybe had been strained due to career ambitions. They're definitely more ethnically diverse than the baby boomers. And a lot of times they are sandwiched between the baby boomers. So they take on a lot of their qualities along with the millennials as well. So this is that generational difference that you're going to see between these two and the next slide that I'll be presenting. So millennials, right? So they were introduced to the iPod. So they handheld music streaming. It was the beginnings of some form of social media and introducing connectivity through digital spaces like MySpace. They have a greater aversion to labels, institutions. That's why you see a lot of social activity involved with them and activism involved with this group of millennials. They value teamwork. They really love being able to work with other people, be in a group, collaborate together. That's why you see some corporations have built some large college type campuses with collaborations and open spaces with knocking down sort of office walls in their workspace. So that's where, because of the value that the millennials have in regards to teamwork. They're less likely to identify with any sort of political party or religion. They're very much more open curious, don't want to put a label on themselves on who they are or what they believe in. Some of them may have returned home because they want to start saving money, and between the ages of 25 and 35, they're being much more frugal with their funding and want to be back home with their parents, as well as their parents may have been heavily involved in their upbringing. So there's a huge importance and need for them to have constant praise, recognition for the achievements. If you think about youth sports, it was probably everyone gets a trophy when in their upbringing. So very much the praise me, value me, give me some sort of recognition type of worker. And then we've got our Gen Zs. And the Gen Zs are actually the most anxious and nervous of all of the generations. They live in this world of social media, instant gratification. They want likes, they want subscriptions, they're on their smartphones, they don't need to go. So when we talked about the large desktop computers with the mainframes, or big data towers, we've now moved from that to laptops, and then now even smaller to smartphones. So they can really get all they need in terms of information from the click of their phone. They are the actually most entrepreneurial type generation. So they actually value more independence and can be competitive because of this. They also are very open in terms of their views as well. They grew up with a Black president. They were involved with they've seen same-sex marriages. They are very much open and liberal in terms of what they see around them. And they value most authenticity. They're tired. They would love more of the straight talk. They're sort of tired of the political type responses, canned responses, and can be very good at multitasking, doing multiple things at once, which again, sometimes can lead to their inability to be inattentive or fully focused because they're doing so many things at once. And of course, if the Gen X's value work-life balance, these folks live the work-life balance. And some of them may have even been involved with this nomad existence, that they don't need to be in their home to work. They don't need to be in the office to work. Maybe I'm traveling on the beach somewhere. Maybe I'm at a coffee shop somewhere, and I'm just working from there. So the nomad existence is part of their work-life style, if you will. So what does this all mean when we think about all the general differences that we have within the workplace? Well, what's important is that everybody tends to learn, observe, and gather all of their information and take direction and knowledge differently. Thus, this is going to lead to various perspectives, lead to different ideas, develop new solutions. Also, each generation can bring a different skill set. You've got the boomers who are used to writing letters, handcrafting notes, versus now the Gen Zs who are more easily into text and even abbreviations. And so it allows us an ability to connect in various different ways. Other things that can really benefit from a multi-generational workplace is that it could decrease your time to make decisions. So 87% of a generation, they've done some studies where 87% of generational and cultural diverse teams have decreased their time by 87% to make a decision, whereas 73% have also decreased their time to make a decision when there's a gender diversity involved as well. You get better buy-in from the people that in the audience that you're trying to bring into your company, or be motivated by a goal, or maybe the population that you're serving, because of the fact that you are multi-generational and you've been able to really look at all the different folks you want to serve. There's two-way mentoring that's happening in a multi-generational workforce. So it's the old or the baby boomers who are now sharing their experiences, sharing what's worked in the past, sharing really evergreen and conventional knowledge about the company. And then the other way around, you've got the new younger generations that are actually helping with technology improvements and helping with ways to improve productivity in the workplace through speed and different uses of platforms and softwares and hardware technology that's out there. And at the end of the day, a diverse set of experience, perspectives, backgrounds can be essential if you're really looking to solve complex problems, right? Because you're going to be able to innovate, think outside of the box, find different solutions, to find and also develop new products, programs, and services for the future. Now, in a remote environment, how this could impact things very differently, right? So if you are a manager of someone who has a remote team or a hybrid workforce, acknowledging that every generation is going to have their own nuances. So the better you can understand the way they want to communicate, the better you understand the way they want to receive and learn information, the better you'll be able to motivate and have your employee, regardless of generation, perform. You also, as a leader of a remote or hybrid workforce, will need to learn to adapt to different working styles. So it's not the one size fits all or the broad management style anymore. You want to be able to be flexible and change and meet where your employees are coming from to help them be successful and ensure, again, productivity and engagement within that workforce. You are also now allowing your employee to grow and feel more in control of their own work schedules. It's providing them the sense of, again, of a better mental well-being because they can figure out what their work-life balances are, figure out what is most important to them, and create priorities in their lives, as well as you are developing that culture of balance and trust for your workforce. Other things that could occur with a multi-generational remote or hybrid workforce is that they are now personalizing also their future career. You know, there were things that were out in the media lately about silent quitting, right? So that truly is happening on the back end of things. So they are maybe looking elsewhere for other opportunities, trying to find ways to advance in their career. So constantly having the pulse of your employee and keeping check-ins frequently will be important because they are on their personal journey in terms of where they want to go with their careers rather than it being a singular upper management decision of workplaces in the past. Collaborating can be limited, right? If folks are remote, if some folks are in the office, if you only get together once or twice a year, there's going to be a lack of in-person connectivity, natural networking capabilities where you're really just getting to know one another more often because you're physically in the same space with each other. And then also there could be limiting opportunities for engaging with potential mentors and people that are going to really have a hand in growing and be key contributors to your upward mobility within the workforce. So those are some downsides of the multi-generational differences in the workplace, plus having a remote or hybrid workforce. And then lastly, we talked about it earlier where a lot of the employees these days are feeling resentful where the employers are like, everyone's coming back to work 5 days a week, 9 to 5 or whatever, 8 hours a day. There's a level of resentment. And some of the employees out there are just feeling like there's no engagement of conversation on what makes the most sense for me, what makes the most sense for my team. Let's say you've got a sales team out there. Do you necessarily need them to be 100% in the office every day, all the time? Because it's a sales team. They could easily be as most productive outside of work, being out there trying to build sales with their direct clients. And then maybe it's once or twice a month or once or twice a quarter, they get together for some best practice sharing on their sales calls or one-on-one training with a development sales officer. So things of that nature are definitely things to think about as you are determining the generations in the workforce plus the remote hybrid worker. And so is the hybrid workforce a better option? And if it is the better option for you and your team, what are the different ways that we can improve performance and productivity? So before I jump into this, I think I see a couple questions in the chat. Let me see if I can actually pull it up.
You should look in the Q&A.
I see it, yes. So it's a combination of both. Yes, there are going to be some city governments that are definitely encouraging businesses to come back to the office because if they are located in a heavily financial or corporate district of a city, all of the smaller businesses that are surrounding that city are definitely hurt by the lack of employees being in the workplace. So definitely there is some political pressure coming from city governments in order to support the neighboring businesses that are suffering. Let's see. Any other questions? Okay, I will move on. So when you think about a hybrid workforce and ways to improve productivity and performance, the first step is a clear communication channel. Obviously, you are not seeing this employee very often in the workplace. So making sure you've got a set schedule. Maybe you do a weekly meeting with them. Be consistent. Have an agenda in that meeting. We're going to go over things that we talked about last week and then see what kind of challenges or obstacles you're having this week. So that could be a quick 30-minute check-in weekly, just to say, hey, how are you doing? How was your weekend? And by the way, what are your priorities for this week? Know and train your employees on these various communication tools once you've determined what the communication tool will be. So are you checking in with them or meeting with them through Teams? Are you checking in and meeting them through Google Meet or Slack, for example, which is a text messaging tool, WhatsApp now, Zoom? Again, remembering your multi-generational employees, not everyone knows how to utilize that particular technology. So the last thing you want is that one of your employees doesn't show up to a meeting and the reason is because they just don't know how to use that tool or aren't responding to you on WhatsApp because they just don't know how to use that tool. We want to make sure that they've been fully trained and that you're not now looking at the employee that is not performing. Set expectations on when to use the technology and which technology is used for what. So for example, if we're going to say to our younger generation, hey, send me these documents. I need to see these online. Are we going to be doing that through email? And email might be the best way to send documents to each other versus let me attach it to a text message, or let me just pull it up in a video call. And then after the video call goes away, the document goes away too. So those are the different things we want to make sure that we've got also clear expectations on which technology are we using for what. Align your team's expectations with the managers by conducting regular check-ins. So there's also that issue around, I'm just having multiple meetings every other day. It doesn't give me enough time to do the actual work I need. So that was a big response during the pandemic when we all first went remote. A majority of the businesses went remote and all of the managers panicked and didn't know how to check in with their employees. So it was a constant check-in, which was too often that it didn't allow the employee to actually do the work that needed to be done. Utilize some data sharing and project management tools. So Dropbox is a great data management tool that you could put all your files together so everybody is sharing digital and electronic files, or Google Drive. There's also project management tools like Asana and HubSpot. And again, if you do determine that this is a tool that is going to be utilized by your workforce, ensuring that there's proper training for all and clear expectations on what we're using this tool for, because that can definitely increase a lot of productivity. We also want to be clear on common lingo and acronyms, especially if you've got your new hires that come into the business. Lots of businesses or lots of industries might use certain acronyms, text messaging. There's always acronyms. Believe it or not, some of the younger generations aren't familiar with FYI for your information. So making sure that we've got clear communication and orientation for all multi-generationals in your workforce on what the different acronyms are within the business. And then also with your meetings, ensure there's some form of note-taking. So when we used to all meet in person, sometimes you need to assign a secretary, and that secretary would, or somebody, a note taker, they would take notes for what took place in the meeting. That's not necessarily happening as much anymore when we're looking at a remote or hybrid workforce. So maybe you're doing a Zoom meeting and you're recording just like this, but who sends out the recording after the meeting so that everybody can review it for notes? Or is there like an electronic document that's in a Google Drive for all of the meeting notes as well, or an agenda that we can always go back and look, oh yes, on September 15th, we met on this, and that. So there's actual written documentation of what's been discussed in the meetings to ensure, again, performance and productivity is clear and that no one is just failing on expectations based on not having any record. Set goals and track them. You know, with a remote and hybrid workforce, you can still set goals and track them with your team. You know, you have your key KPIs, or what we call your key performance indicators, or OKRs. So set those with your team. Sometimes your metrics may actually be even written in the job description, right? So when you put that posting out there for the position, or you're determining what are the roles and responsibilities for each member of your team, make sure that each of them are clear and that they've seen this document and that they know what they're responsible for and that they know what kind of metrics they need to be meeting on a regular basis. And then lastly, also have those metrics be time bound. Again, taking the example of the sales team. So, you know, we are going to be reaching out to, let's say you pull up your pipeline of leads out there, and each of the folks on the remote sales team are deciding to take 50 each. Okay, so what's the time in regards to when we need to be connecting with each of them, or when are we going to reconvene? Are we reconvening in 10 days, 15 days, 30 days to say, where are we with all of these leads, right? So hold the team members, especially when they're remote or hybrid, to some time qualifiers as well. Or you've got a project that you're working on and you assign it to one of your hybrid employees and they say, sure, I'll be doing it and I'll get this back to you in a week's time. So make sure there's always some form of a time measurement to every conversation, so each of you are on the same page with your remote employee about when things are due and what they should look like. Other things to consider is, as you are also looking at or evaluating a remote or hybrid employee's performance, what should that look like specifically, right? So are you telling them, I need you to be invoicing all of our employees, you know, every 30 days? Are you saying to them, actually, the invoicing piece is what will meet the performance metric, not so much maybe the receiving of the funds? So being clear that maybe you have a hybrid or remote accountant somewhere that actually for high performance, we need receipt of the funds coming into our business. We need the actual cash flow coming into our business. And that's what you'll be measured by, is the number of accounts receivable we receive. So that is sometimes where there's these differences and nuances of, oh, well, I was just told the expectation was to ensure invoices went out for 30 days, where in actuality, your manager's actually looking for you to actually collect payment. So performance is really important to be defined. And then what are those results going to look like, right? So again, if you are a hybrid recruiter or again, salesperson, well, results is you are closing your sales and you're closing these amount of sales, either a dollar amount of sales or a number of sales, right? Not just, oh, I've reached out to my 50 leads and I'm done and great. Employee thinks that their performance is perfect. Whereas you as an employer, no, I need the results. So being very clear in terms of what those results should look like needs to be very communicated on a consistent basis. And then last but not least, establish your feedback loops. If you're going to ask somebody to work on a particular project and I need it by this date, always go back and check in. How are you doing on this? Where are you with this? Do you need my help? Is there an obstacle I can remove for you? So inspect what you expect, because if you just expect it and communicate it, but not go back and inspect it, your remote and hybrid employees will feel like, oh, okay, well, maybe it wasn't that important to the manager because they didn't necessarily inspect it with me when they said they would. So be mindful of inspecting what you expect at all times for remote and hybrid employees. Also, one way to be successful with getting your team to be motivated and performing is encourage a work-life balance, right? We are in this hybrid workplace because of that. And encouraging a work-life balance with a remote or hybrid workforce is no different than how you would do it in person. We just tend to get hung up on, well, what would that look like? Because they're not really coming into the office. Well, you can still get to know your employee. Make sure you have a proper onboarding process for them when you hire a new hire. Make sure you're introducing them to everybody on the team. If everybody is remote, sending out a quick email to everybody, hey, I'd like to introduce this new team member. Please welcome them. Encourage your other team members and remote team members to say hello. As you get started with some of your group meetings, maybe everybody goes around the room and not only introduces themselves and who they are and what they do, but maybe they can even just share a little fun fact about themselves, or, what's their favorite color, what's their favorite food, what did they do this weekend, that type of thing. So really get to know your employee on a more conscious level, because there is an extra effort to have to do this, knowing that it doesn't come naturally with everybody being within the same workspace. I put here pet peeves. Not just know the positive things about your employees, but also understand from them what are some things that irk you or bother you about some past work environments that you may have been in. So understand from them. Well, I didn't like, get to hear from them if I didn't like if my manager was checking in with me every 5-10 minutes, or beginning of the day or end of the day. I couldn't be as productive as I needed to be, or I didn't like that I was getting text messages only once a month, and I was actually left to my own devices and nobody was really checking in on me. Or I didn't like the fact that I was never really recognized for when it was my birthday or my work anniversary or anything, or when I had a difficult situation that I was dealing with. So get to know your employees, and specifically even ask little nuanced questions of what are some of your own pet peeves. Provide clear instructions when it comes to PTO. So now, not all businesses are going to be required to provide paid time off, but you are required in the state of California to give California paid sick leave, right? So ensure, what is the California paid sick leave going to be used for? How many hours do I get? If I'm an exempt employee, what does that, exempt meaning salaried employee, what does that look like? If I'm an hourly employee and I only get paid by the hour, what does that look like? So provide a really clear and distinct instructions on what California paid sick leave or paid time off guidelines look like, including how they should go about requesting it, right? So when we were in the office, there may have been a form that gets filled out, the form gets sent to the manager approves yes or no. Now we're all remote. Is it a simple email? Is it a calendar that everybody is multiple, people are sharing this calendar and everybody's just inputting the days that they're off or in or off of the office or out of the office? So be very mindful about being clear on how do people notify or let anybody else in that hybrid workforce know whether or not somebody's in the office or not. Since we're not seeing each other physically, it's more about how do we notify. And I know Slack is a technology right now that allows you to show everybody on that Slack team, I'm in the office, I'm in the office, I'm in the office. So it's a really great tool for hybrid or remote workforces to utilize, so everybody can see the greens, they're in the office, everybody can see if they're on break, and then everybody, you put yourself out on break, and everybody can even see, oh, I'm away for 5-10 minutes, whatever it may be. Encourage, obviously, that there isn't multiple people leaving at all of the same time. In an office environment, it's easy to see that. I can't have everybody take the same vacation at the last week of December, because you could see it, that the office is empty in a physical space. With remote and hybrid workers, it's easy to forget that. So how do you ensure that you've got coverage for all of your summer holidays, all of your during the holidays, around Christmas time? What are some other religions and other practices that other employees may be utilizing? Because not everybody may be celebrating Christmas. So things of that nature, of ensuring you've got a clear map of who is taking time off when. And then the breaks. By law, all hourly employees, so this is a non-exempt employee, not salaried, is required to take rest breaks and meal breaks. And the rest breaks is a 10-minute break, step away from your desk, every 4 hours. So there was an issue, obviously, when we were all hybrid and all remote, that employees that were working from home were not taking their breaks. So ensure that they are aware that they need to take their 10-minute break every 4 hours and a 30-minute unpaid meal period for every 5 hours work. Some people were even missing their lunches and they were just eating at their desk while working remotely, and it wasn't very healthy. So making sure that you've got your employees on some kind of schedule to take their breaks. Also, practice the Pomodoro method. And this is really, really popular with some of the Gen Zs and the millennials. It's every 25 minutes of work or every 45 minutes of work, they're taking a 5-minute break, right? And that's something for them from a work lifestyle perspective, because of course they can multitask too and do so many different things in a short amount of time with the technology that they utilize. It's just helpful for them to do every 25 to 45 minutes of work. They'll step away, stand in the sun, walk the dog for 5 minutes. So know that that's sort of their work style and helps them be most productive. And then, of course, focus on team culture, right? Building team culture is going to be very key too with your remote workforce. So icebreakers during your virtual meetings, asking different questions, favorite color, favorite fall flavor or spice nowadays. You can even go with coworkers and do some sort of virtual coffee breaks. It doesn't mean that if you're all remote or all hybrid and working from different locations, doesn't mean I can still take my phone and quickly do a FaceTime with a colleague and let's go for a walk together. You're not in the physical space, but you could still be doing it using the technology. If you are meeting each other on a every so often basis, so you're hybrid, so you predominantly work from home, but you meet each other once a month. Plan maybe a quarterly or biannual volunteering event of something that everybody on the team really, really embraces, like a cause that everybody has. Maybe we're trying to solve homelessness, and so we all volunteer at a food bank or something like that. Maybe if you can't get together in person because you're not all in person or in an area where everybody could get together, do virtual fundraising. Find ways that you could do like a dine out with a national food chain or something like that. Once you get together, there's still opportunities to build culture through game nights or even virtual game nights, escape rooms, scavenger hunts. Create virtual clubs if you're a large enough organization. If you were all in a business workspace, there's sometimes those employee groups. So maybe it's the Black and Latino group, maybe it's the Asian American group, maybe it's the LGBTQ plus club, right? So you can kind of have still some virtual groups that get together if you are a larger hybrid and remote organization. Let's also not forget the recognition programs. When we would meet in person, sometimes we might have like a large recognition dinner. If you could still do that and it's still something within the realm and scope of your organization, do it. Do the in-person once a year recognition event. But if not, how do you still build in, I'm going to send this person a thank you card. I'm going to do a public shout out on Slack and say, thank you so much for such a great job, well done. I'm going to actually present a virtual certificate to somebody on a team meeting or at an in-person event. Remember, recognizing that through our generational differences, we also like to be recognized differently. Not everybody likes to be recognized the same. And then always constantly provide opportunities for continuous learning. Maybe there's conferences that people could go to. Maybe you are, subsidizing some sort of training program or a certificate that an employee wants to get, or, getting them on different webinars, et cetera. And then, of course, the peer-to-peer mentorship or finding ways, maybe formalizing an executive or a higher up manager, getting connected with a lower level, entry level employee so that they can start their formal mentorship, even if it is remote or virtual. And then last but not least, obviously health and safety is always going to be a concern in any type of workplace, any type of work environment. So labor law posters, even if you've got hybrid employees, you would normally have them in your office if it was a physical space. You could still do that if you have that because you've got some of your employees coming in and out of the office. But if you've got totally remote employees, they need to be emailed or PDF'd with the new hire package that you're sending them or offer letter that you're sending them, because they should see and be aware of what those labor law posters are as well. And be mindful too, if you are in different states or your remote employees are in different states, they should be made aware of what the labor laws are in their particular state. California, of course, is the most pro-employee state out there, and some other states might be more pro-employer, so they may not have as strict of the labor law requirements as California does. Also, make sure you have some form of an employee handbook, digital, right, and online, or if not a handbook, at least a code of conduct. Everybody should know what's appropriate, what's not appropriate, what are the guidelines, are there dress code requirements, are there absences and tardiness policies, social media requirements in terms of being mindful of the brand, because we're doing a lot digitally. Their social media profile should still probably be at utmost professional because they are a representative of your company. We also have harassment prevention training for online and preventing sort of cyberbullying. Maybe your company offers DEI or inclusivity training, so that isn't necessary, that's optional, of course. And then the harassment prevention training is a requirement for businesses of 5 or more. So there is a law in the state of California that 5 or more employees do need to complete the harassment prevention training every 2 years. And then also be mindful of your communication tools, offer mental health resources as well, not just medical. A lot of our Gen Zs and millennials, again, are very big on behavioral health. Even if they want to take a sick day for mental health days is what they call them nowadays. So they are obligated and are within their rights to do so. And encourage trust and an empowered decision making. You know, everyone comes to work for you, especially when we hire them, to do a good job. So always consider positive intent until proven otherwise. Is a lot of times the big motto that I like to share with all the businesses I support is, let's not think negatively right off the bat. Let's always give benefit of the doubt. And then last but not least, we've got some unique perks, right? So perks for employees that are remote or hybrid are going to be key, you know, again, because maybe some of them are not coming into the office. If they are every so often coming into your office, make sure your technology advisors are available for them once they are scheduled to come into the office, because sometimes laptops get old. Cybersecurity is a big thing out there nowadays. We need to update sort of phishing and antivirus software within our computers. So helping our employees do that. So if they do come into the office once or twice a month, make sure your tech advisors are available, as well as you have tech advisors that know how to support remote employees. Ergonomics is key too. You know, we've got, again, during the remote period of everybody just on their computers constantly, they weren't set up properly with height restrictions. You see the trend of standing desks. Maybe they needed special mouses because they were getting carpal tunnel, or, you know, keyboard protectors. So be mindful of having proper ergonomics for your folks that are working remotely, because they can still file workers' compensation claims of injury, you know, neck because of neck issues, maybe because they don't have the proper ergonomics of the height of where their monitor is, or maybe they needed a second monitor due to sight restrictions and, you know, visual aids. So always being mindful and aware that your remote employees may still need an ergonomics consult for their workspace at home. Consider cell phone and technology stipends. We don't have the landlines anymore in the office. Everyone's using their own cell phone for business. So what is it? How often are you on the phone with your employee? And do you want to consider maybe covering, you know, a $25 stipend for their $50 stipend for their cell phone bill or internet bill, whatever it may be? So just helping them out in that regard could go a long way with performance and productivity. In the past too, lots of businesses would do work meetings with food. Well, we are all remote, or we're a hybrid team, and some of us are in the office, others are not. I've offered food to the ones in the office, but what about the folks remote? Consider a DoorDash card, or an ordering, or you order remotely from, again, a nationwide chain and have it delivered to their house, right? You know, a Domino's pizza box or something like that. That can, you know, help them be involved in also receiving some food during food provided meetings, or just don't provide food at all, right? Work-life balance webinars, workshops, we talked about that. And then always ensure that your rules, like if you've got an employee handbook, if you've got California paid sick leave that is a requirement, retirement benefits that are a requirement, just be mindful of how will all of this work when it comes to those folks that maybe are also working remotely on your team. And if there is a different rule, what does that look like? And then it's clear and transparent for all. So in summary, and I want to leave us some time for questions, productivity has increased actually 5%. Nearly 6 out of 10 workers saying that they are more productive at home than actually being in the office, and have that interactive conversation with them with what works best for them. Do they need to come into the office at least once or twice a week? Because they can't help but concentrate on their, laundry pile that they have to do there. So maybe it is a requirement for them that they should come into the office because they have so many at-home distractions. Decide and have that interactive conversation with them with what works best. And with that, I wanted to open it up for questions and thank again our sponsors. And there is a Google form for you to fill out in terms of the survey.
Thank you so much, Melissa. I just put that evaluation form in the chat, and I'm going to pass it over to Cynthia Murray, who is going to guide us through the Q&A process.
Thank you, Melissa. Thank you, Miriam. That was a terrific, comprehensive presentation. Melissa, I really appreciate it. One of the things that was just asked was, what do you think about asking employees, staff members, what kind of culture building activities they'd like to see rather than guessing or imposing them?
I am 110% in agreement with that. Absolutely. Team culture, workplace culture, it involves everyone. So asking, giving out a survey, similarly to asking your employees, how would they like to be recognized? It is also about asking employees, what type of workplace culture do we want to have, and what kind of team building activities do we want to do?
So maybe you could take down your presentation so people can.
Oh, yes, sure.
One of the things that I've heard is that one of the possible bad things about working remotely is employees don't tend to get promoted because they're not as visible to the managers. And in my mind, that's a management deficiency. But have you heard that? And what do you think about that?
Yes, and that definitely, to your point, is a management deficiency. There needs to be an extra effort for the managers in their mind about who they have that is working remotely and is not on site constantly, because of the fact that it's like not seen, not remembered, or not, right? So they do need to have a conscious effort of who they have remotely and what those folks are capable of.
So you talked about, or one of the previous questions was about, is the local governments trying to push return to work? And one of the areas that I've heard that they're very concerned about is the impacts on public transportation. And the fact that people aren't commuting like they used to has really put a lot of our public transportation at risk. But at the same time, we have employees who we wouldn't be able to attract if they had to come to the office all the time because of the long commutes and our failure to provide affordable workforce housing. We're able to attract employees maybe with skill sets we couldn't find locally or not as easily because of giving them the remote option. And I just would love for you to talk a little bit more about that.
And that is correct. Again, similarly to the small businesses in the area being impacted, transportation is being impacted as well with having a remote workforce. And two things on that front. Obviously, because of the complexity and the uniqueness of where we are shifting the work environment, urban planning needs to develop and innovate as well. There needs to be sort of different things that start to happen within your local city governments. Alongside with that, I am in agreement as well that because of the fact that we can attract talent from almost anywhere nowadays with a hybrid workforce. It's actually great, and it's a great opportunity to be able to see that, well, there's someone, across the globe even that has this particular skill set, and maybe we can't or don't have the finances to bring them here in person, sponsor their H-1B visa or whatever it may be, but they can still somehow work remotely for us with whatever it is that we need done, right? So it is a really great opportunity to seek out all of the talent that we have out there. And with that, the flip side is some folks might even say, well, then that opens us up to potential retention issues, right? Because people can start poaching all of our great employees that are working for us, and now they go and work for another company across the globe or across the country. Yes, it does open you up to retention strategies that you need to implement as well within your business. But if you can always get your workforce to buy into what the mission, the vision, the values of your company is, and if you're treating your employees multi-generational diversity in terms of helping them feel valued and that they are contributing to the bottom line of your business, they're not going to go anywhere. They will love to work for your organization. They will love to work for you as a manager, and they would love to be able to continue to work with the mission and the vision of the company that they've decided to sign on to. So always keeping that front and center for your employees is a strong way to ensure that they stay with you and stay on board with you for the long haul.
And when you look at the different generations, it's a data point that the younger generations really want to work for an organization that has a sense of purpose, that is doing good things for climate change, that's doing good things for social equity, those kinds of things. And so it's important that you communicate to the employees what the company is doing, and not just saying it, but doing it, because that's the authenticity that they crave.
Correct.
So trust is a big part of this, and I think you touched on it, but that is something that there needs to be. The employees trust that the company is there to support them and help them be successful and productive. But it's the other way too, is that the management has to trust the employee. And there's a lot of things that have come out now where it's software to make sure that people are really there. They're not just using screens, and that, and the whole ability with AI maybe to do things that employee is. Talk a little bit about that, some of the workarounds that employees are using, and then what employers are using to try and make sure that people are doing what they say they're doing.
Yeah. One of the biggest things that I've heard some employers have started to do is like, well, I've got this time tracker app. Okay. And I would ask them, well, tell me more about what this app does. Well, it installs it on their phone, and these, workers are never going to go anywhere without their phone. So I can totally see where they are based on the app. And I said, great. Okay. Well, now how does that help you as the manager of these employees? What is this doing for you? Are you yourself as a manager feeling you're being the best manager for these employees? Or there seems to be a lack of trust there. Like, what is the intention behind telling them to download this app and track their time? And it really gets them to thinking, well, yeah, sure. I'm sitting here now just constantly looking at the app to see where everybody is and just making sure everybody's doing what they need to be doing, versus saying to them, okay, here's what our projects are. Here's what we need to get done on a weekly basis. We've communicated it at the beginning of the week. I'll check back in with you on Friday or Tuesday next week to see how you're doing. How does that feel, manager? And manager's like, well, of course, I feel so much more free, and I'm able to now just do the work that I need to be doing. So if the work does not get done, and if there's evidence to show that the employee that you've hired is not doing what they need to be doing in terms of your expectations, and the product isn't there, the performance doesn't seem to be there when they need to be presenting or doing whatever it is they need to do, that's what you hold them accountable to, not that, oh, okay, I see at 12:02 p.m. on Thursday you were not at your desk.
Speaking of time, I just realized we are out of time. So let me remind everyone to please fill out the evaluation form so that we can get a good understanding of what you got from this presentation. And Melissa Sanchez, it was a fantastic presentation. Thank you so much. Thank you also, Dr. Denise Lucy and Miriam Hope Carell for being great partners. We'll send out Melissa's slides to all the attendees following this webinar. And I'd like to let you know that Dominican University runs various executive education programs, especially designed for North Bay professionals. For a list of these programs, please visit the link that we're putting in the chat window right now. Thank you so much for joining our webinar today, and we look forward to seeing you again at future Business Edge briefings. Thank you so much. Have a great day.